Welcome back to the shop. This should be the last video. Got really three things to do. Nut, wiring. Do have to mount the pickups. That's part of wiring anyway. Before I do that, and then the other thing that I need to do is paint the pickup cavities and the control cavity with rear guard shielding paint from Crimson Guitars. So that probably didn't show up in focus at all, but I tried. So I'm going to do that so I can sort the nut out while the paint dries. So these little, they sometimes called acid brushes. These guys are come in bags of 100. The instructions specifically say, if you get this on your skin or on your in your eyes, please rinse them immediately with clean water, parentheses, tears won't help this time. Tears won't suffice this time. Much more British. If ingested, please contact a doctor or medical professional. If you're going to flush it with water to clean it, I assume that it's water cleanup, but it doesn't actually say. Guys, it should say whether or not it's water cleanup or not. Guess we'll figure it out, but these are pennies, so I kind of don't care. Even if I have to basically ditch it, wouldn't make any difference. Really does leave an interesting metal sheen on your fingers. There's a lot of metal in this. I mean, there has to be, but it's interesting. So I'm going to do the back of the control cavity too, to rough it up so to make sure the paint will stick. Now for anybody who doesn't know, I build spacecraft for a living, and when we do EMI, electromagnetic interference gaskets, which is essentially what you're doing here, you're building a Faraday cage, which is effectively trying to reduce the electromagnetic interference that gets into the controls and into the signal of your guitar. But in spacecraft, when you do that, you'd want two 90-degree angles. So here you'd have one, right, as it goes down, and another as it goes across. But what that means is that you really would like this to have a boss around it that fit inside of here, and it was all snug and all that kind of stuff. So here you only have really one 90-degree angle, not two. It's not critical, but I at least found it interesting. I'm probably the only one. Alright, there we go. Go clean that up. Alright, so cleaned the brush, had lunch. Now, to make this nut, the nut blank that I bought is really just not tall enough. Like, if I put it down here all the way down in the wood and use my not straight edge, the edge of that, it actually clears on the one end and barely clears on the other. So that's got to come up enough for me to be able to take enough meat off of it. So I have a little scrap of mahogany, and just gonna, I've run it down on my big belt sander and just need to cut it down to that width and glue that all in there. And then I can really actually start to shape the nut. Alright, little bandsaw action, and I have a nice wedge, good height, good width. It's a little bit wider than the nut, and the nut's a little bit wider than the fretboard, so this will all fit. This will all fit good. I'm actually going to glue these two together and treat them as one unit. Alright, about 10 minutes later, super glue's all nice and cured. I have a taller nut length than I had before. So a little bit of fine sanding, and also I made a split pencil. Well, basically I just routed away the back of it on my big belt sander, and then ran the point down here to a nice sharp needle point, and that will let me mark on here where the height of the frets is. Now I'm going to do a little sanding on here. Well, no, the bottom's good, so the height's already okay. One side is, I think, a little taller than the other. Maybe not. I thought it was. Yeah, this side's a little taller, so this is the low string side. All right, so this gives me the height. Not to violate, I want to be above that by a little bit when I file the notches. So, according to my sources, the internet, the concept is to find the height of your frets above the fretboard, and in this case, I'm still on the tape, so I probably need to remove that off, at least off the first fret. I don't really need it anymore, I just haven't taken it off yet. Alright. Measure the height of that off the fretboard, and then add between 0.01 and 0.03 inches, and that should be the kind of a guard band. So I'm going to start at the 0.03 and trying not to, don't violate that. You can always go deeper. So the thickest I have here is 0.26. Alright, and this is definitely thicker than that. 2.6 and 1.6 is 4.2. Alright, it's not quite that thick, so let's see what we have here. So I'm about 0.35 maybe. This is 0.26 and 0.1, so that would give me 0.36. So 0.36 is about where I should be. I can feel just the littlest bit of resistance there. So that's 3.6, so I'm going to go up to 0.66. So I got to do a little math here. This adds 27 to that. That number will do. I'm worried about 0.03 of an inch. Alright. So that means that this is kind of my don't violate this depth when cutting the slots. I didn't talk about this yet. This is a compensated string spacing layout tool, and it is a printout that has the strings spaced from the lowest string to the highest string this way, and in my layout that's this direction. And so if we come down to where the width, this width meets the width of that line, that tells me where those string slots should be as I lay it on that. on that. So I'm going to go to the middle point where the outside lines are breaking across the center of the nut. So I'm using a jeweler's saw to just start these slots. Make sure I don't go too deep for anything. But I don't want to just cut it with the nut files. That'll destroy them real quick. That works great. 46, 48. So if I get the camera to focus on this, focus on my hand. Thank you very much. So I'm creeping up on it and getting there. It's about right. There we go. Alright. Let's make sure that the nut slots are angled back at the same angle. Alright, the nut's glued in with a little medium gel super glue, but I don't have any accelerator, and so that's going to take a little bit to dry, and I'm going to have to do a little bit of finishing here. And I got a refinish right in here. I left more space for the nut than I really needed to, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of finish right here. And most of that will be covered by the truss rod nut cover anyway. But it needs to be right. I'm getting pretty close to having a guitar here. The next thing is to put on strings and use a capo on the first fret, and then I can set the bridge height. And after I set the bridge height, then I can finish tuning in the nut slots. The nut is not actually setting up on the screws where it needs to be. So I need to go and get the whammy bar. Alright, let's see. Ah, there we go. Now it's sitting up where it needs to be. I'm going to take that back out of there. And you can see I don't know if you can see, but the height of the bridge right here is where it needs to be. It's kind of popped up, sitting up on those screws. Alright, now at this point, if I got tension wise, okay, so I could see that the bridge was actually bottoming out on the back side and the top side of the body, and so that tells me that the spring tension was too tight. So I pulled these running these screws out about 1.5 turns, and let me see how that behaves. I'll have to tune it back up. You didn't need to watch me tune a guitar, right? So let's put the capo back on. And look at this height again. So it still seems like it's really high to me. it's still really, really high? I don't know the answer to this question. I mean, I can lower this bridge by running these screws in, but this is supposed to be the right height. So, okay, so somehow when I put the screws in for the bridge, and I thought I had the heights right, they were totally wrong. So I took the screw again and I'm double checking underneath the bridge, and the height was like almost a whole millimeter high. So I ran the screws in almost a whole turn, all the screws, and I made sure they were all nice and even, and I've double checked the height a couple of times. So this ought to be better. Hold on, I'll retune it. Alright, back up to tune. Let's try this again. Okay, editing Emery here. The thing about this guitar is that I got it as an incomplete instrument that's apparently, I don't know, came out of the Paul Reed Smith factory for some reason. And it came with a chipped headstock, as you may have seen in episode, I think, 2. So the thing is that I assumed that that's why it had gotten scrapped. But it might have also been because the neck is really not set at the correct angle. Now, I think I can correct that by working with the saddle blocks on the bridge, but at this point in the video, I kind of hadn't figured that out, and there's a lot of me scratching my head as to why on earth the action is so high. And so it may be just that the neck is actually not glued on properly. And it's at slightly a higher angle than it should be, making the whole action high. I don't know. I'm going to get somebody to look at this who knows really what they're looking at. So there may be an epilogue to this whole video series that talks about how I fixed it. So now I think that the springs probably aren't pulling hard enough. So I did all wiring for the volume and tone pots off screen, and I understand it's way entirely over-engineered. I put all the grounds on first, and then realized that the cable that I'm using, which is just microphone wire, so it's 2-line shielded, already had a shield in it, and I didn't need it. But it already had all the green ground wires in here, so I'll leave them on. I hadn't thought the grounds all the way through, and I grounded it all first before I put on the signals. And then I realized I needed the shield connected to shield the signal lines. So the only slightly unusual thing is that all the Paul Reed Smith wiring diagrams that I'd seen had 180 picofarads between this is where this leg on your, I don't know, left and right? My left, your right. This is the leg that connects to the pickup. Center is the tap that goes to the output, right? They have 180 picofarad capacitor in between the two. Well, what I had was 330 picofarads, yeah, PF, 330 puff, and so I needed 180. But if I take two 330s and put them in series, basically I can divide them in half. So I have 165 puff, not 180 puff. Isn't that going to make hardly any difference? It's only a couple percent different. And I think that that's just for I don't even know. It's like for a little bit of tone conditioning, or maybe it's like a noise reduction or something. I'm not exactly sure. In the circuit, I can't kind of figure it out in my head what it does. And then the tone pot I bought already wired as a Paul Reed Smith tone pot, and so then the I have two volumes. This is neck, this is bridge, and this is tone. That's how they're gonna be on the front of the guitar. So I don't have a switch. I don't want one. That's what it is. Time to get this wired into the guitar. Alright, so this is the neck pickup, this is the bridge, this is obviously the claw ground. So I'm going to use my Jimmy DeRest ice pick, and I'm going to pick apart the braid here, and then I will need to strip the end of that signal line that's in the middle, and alright, bought a piece of scrap whatever, because the last thing I want to do right now is get hot solder on the back of the guitar. Alright, here it is the next day. I finally figured out what was going on with the wiring. Drove me crazy until I really thought about what was going on. If you have two volume pots, and right, so you got volume pots, and the pickups are on one side, and the other side's ground, and this is the output, right? When you set one to ground, to turn it off, you set it to ground, well, the output of the other one then is actually running to ground. And so you can't have two volume knobs, two pickups, unless you have them both on, because as soon as you turn one off, the other one's grounded. So you can't do what I'm trying to do. So what I'm going to do instead is basically make the equivalent of a three-way switch for the two pickups, but I'm going to run one pickup to one side of the pot, one pickup to the other side, common out, right? Then you can blend between the two. In the middle will be both pickups equal. And then I'll run that to a volume knob, which has one side output. This has the common of this, right? So this is the input from both pickups. This one is the output to the tone knob, and this one is ground, so you can turn the volume off, right? So I'll have a blend knob. It's just like a three-way switch, except instead of being this or that or both, you can have a blend between the two pickups. So a little bit of rewiring, we'll be ready to go. And all the pickups worked other than that. I found that when I turned them both all the way up, they worked fine. So that was that kind of led me on a path of trying to figure out what was going on. A little bit of problem solving, just kind of thinking about how the voltage dividers worked, and then when I realized when I turned one down, I pulled that, not only I pulled that one to ground, but because the other one was connected to it before it went to the tone knob, they pulled them both down. The weird thing is I've seen this wiring on like Seymour Duncan's website and stuff like that, and they say it works. It actually won't. So anyhow, on to rewiring. Although in reality, since one end of this is shielded, I don't need to shield both ends, right? The one end's shielded, it's fine. So really, all I need to do is have the white wire, which is my signal line. These heavy wires, the jacket is just easier to cut with a razor blade or sheetrock knife or something. All right. Tone works. Volume works. Blend works. All right, let's remount it now that we've tested it and we know that it's good. Alright, how am I missing a washer? Ugh. Oh, I know why. Because the tone knob washer was different. And I put it someplace different, and I don't know. The knob and yeah, the washer and the nut for the tone knob are different than the other ones. And they're right here. Slightly different make, and so I didn't want to screw them up. I am not left-handed. I managed to get it on there anyway. I do still have to make a jack mounting plate. All right. Now, the volume. Obviously on tone. So the tone is kind of backwards from the way I want it to be. That's now this worked a minute ago. Alright, so the neck, right, the bridge works, but then the neck doesn't. Alright, what'd I do? Okay, I'm going to have to put a piece of heat shrink or something on it. So the incoming line from the neck pickup was touching the conductive shielding paint, which obviously works because it grounded it. So now I have, so this is the neck pickup. Right. Right, bridge is a little bit brighter. Let's get this thing tuned up, shall we? One problem with doing this with a really short, I mean the camera's right here. One problem with doing this at really short ranges, I'm 6'4", and so everything on the bench is like 3 feet below me, and so it's hard to see what's going on, but now keep in mind the action's pretty good, but the pickups aren't adjusted, and I haven't even tried to touch the intonation. That's not bad. I'm pretty happy with this. Okay, so let's take a look at the intonation here. I do have it on a. Can I even show you this chromatic tuner? I don't have a fancy tuner, but this one ought to do for the basic intonation. This needs to be a little bit longer. Let's tune this down. Come in about a turn and a half. looks good. And at about 1 tick sharp. Can I pull that in? Yeah, I can pull it in. Down a little bit. Another half a turn. Because this has got this spring-loaded assembly in here, you got to make sure that you don't touch anything when you're trying to tune it. Looks good. The fret is a little bit sharp still. Another half a turn. I'm calling that good. Alright, A's a little. I'm calling it good enough. I'll call that good enough. Still gotta fix that. That has got to get fixed. Got to insulate that line and tighten this up. That might help right there. Oh, not helping enough. Don't ground the pickup. I gotta reverse this tone now, that's gonna drive me crazy. Alright, a couple finishing steps here. Biggest thing I have to do yet is I gotta move this tailstock, this claw piece down, because right now it's too high. Alright, first thing, I'm definitely tired of almost dropping this guitar. So I'm putting my strap locks in. And I bought me a fancy new leather strap for this, because why not? So I have this style strap locks on a couple other instruments, including my Hofner Beetle bass, and it does make the straps interchangeable, but I really like the way these work. All right. There we go. Alright, that's much more the thing. Yeah, there we go. This feels great. I have arms like an orangutan, and so I need it as long as it'll go, which is where it starts out. So I like the way it doesn't slide. Of course, the guitar it's a PRS. It's nicely balanced and hangs real good. Cool. All right, let's fix this back. In reality, I probably need to. Can I just take these out? Yeah, there's not a lot of tension on them. Okay. A little bit of a tap there in the middle. Super happy with the back. All right, I know that I've still got to deal with the nut. The height is not quite finished, and it's not quite. The top needs to be sanded off. I'm gonna put stuff on anyway. Oh yeah, those were definitely the right call. And a bar, and that there's a set screw in there. It needs to get tightened up a little bit. All right, for the several of you, dozens of you that followed along, thank you. This has been my first foray into anything close to a guitar build. Made some errors along the way, learned a lot along the way. Started with, obviously, more than a kit, basically a half-finished Paul Reed Smith, and I've ended up with a fully finished Paul Reed Smith. It's got a few this and that's, that I need to work on yet, and some things that I need to understand about why I'm seeing what I'm seeing on the string heights and a few other things. The action's still about a millimeter higher than it should be. Part of that's the nut. I know that this nut is still a fair bit high, and I think if I bring that down, that helps a lot. But still, there's an angle to this guitar that's really high, and I need to kind of figure out what's going on with that. But it works. I think I can fix that, figure out what's going on with it, make it work one way or the other. My plan is still to get all this silver hardware gold plated, including the screws on the back, because if you're going to gold plate something, you might as well gold plate everything. And obviously I still need the output jack plate. But as soon as I get that sorted, I will impose on some of my real actual guitar playing friends. I'm an acoustic player. I play 12-string acoustic, and I'm a strummer, and I'm pretty good, but I'm no electric guitar player. So I never really thought I'd own anything quite this fancy, but hey, here we are. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Any constructive criticism, any useful comments, super helpful, and get vaccinated and go hug somebody, all right? Thanks a lot. Bye.